Make sure to check us out on Letterboxd for written reviews.
for films that we've done not only on the podcast, but outside of the podcast too.
Links in the description below.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Rewatch podcast. My name is Samuel.
And my name is Jayden.
And this is a podcast where we talk extensively about a certain film and then decide whether it deserves a rewatch from you. You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any other place you listen to podcasts. And if you enjoy the show, please give us a like on the YouTube video. And if you'd like to reach the show, you can send us an email at theonerewatchpodcast@gmail.com. What movie are we going to be talking about today, Jayden?
Just recently released on Netflix, Adam McKay's Don't Look Up.
Yes, so just released a couple of days ago, I believe, starring Leonardo DiCaprio, Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, etc. Very star-studded cast.
Yes.
It's a sort of political satire comedy, a bit of like disaster movie in there as well. Like it's a sort of a mashup of a few genres.
Yep.
So do you have the story overview there, or shall I?
I've got Letterboxd.
Yeah,
one,
go
so
for it.
we can use that. Two low-level astronomers, upon discovering that a meteor will strike the Earth in 6 months, go on a meteor tour to try to warn the world, but find an unreceptive and unbelieving populace.
Yes, so it's sort of making fun of everyone, essentially making fun of society. You know, it's a very we live in a society sort of film.
Yeah.
And I went into this movie sort of pretty positive and also sort of knowing what to expect because I listened to Dan Murrell's review and he's a really good reviewer in my opinion. I trust him very much. And he sort of said, like, it's a fun time if you're into sort of like the political dramas and stuff like that. But it also pokes fun at everyone, like regardless on what your politics are and what you
Yep.
believe and everything like that. So I knew that, this was just going to, not take any prisoners. It's just going to be like firing off at everyone.
Mm-hmm.
So that's how I sort of went into it. What was your expectation?
I'd heard sort of mixed reviews on this. I think it just depends where you sit in terms of political agendas and whether you like that in movies. I, for one, didn't really enjoy that aspect of it. So, yeah, going into it, it was just sort of like a mixed bag of reviews. Some people really liked it, and then some people thought it was like one of the worst movies they've ever seen.
Yeah,
Yeah.
There's quite a range. I mean, from just my friends on Letterboxd, like I can see one of them's given it 4.5, another's given it 4, one's given it 3, another one's given it 1. So,
Yep.
this is a movie that is very divisive and controversial, which kind of makes sense when you sort of see what it's trying to say, and it'll resonate differently with different people. That is for sure. So, would you recommend this film to someone who hasn't seen it? Obviously, it's on Netflix, so we can all, everyone's got Netflix. So, should they check it out?
And personally, I wouldn't recommend it, and it's just like solely because I didn't enjoy this film as much as I thought I would have. Um, but like it's very hard to say don't watch this movie because a lot of people will probably like this movie because they are involved in politics and they find political humor very fun. So just to like the general audience, probably not.
Sure, interesting. Yeah, I think I would, but yeah, I'd sort of give the same caveat as well. Like, if you're not into sort of politics or whatever, or you're not like an environmentalist, then this is probably not your style of movie, especially given the ending, which I won't spoil now, but we'll get into it soon. The message that this movie is trying to send is very political in nature, but it's also not, it's not pushing its own agenda. It's kind of making fun of everyone's agenda, if you know what I mean. Like, it's not,
Yeah,
I don't think it's particularly standing for something except for obviously like the environmentalist angle.
yeah, yeah.
But
Which I don't mind. Like,
yeah,
I think that's very necessary, but it's just more so the fact that they had to involve politics in this. Like, I when I'm watching a movie, I don't want to think about that, and it's so
sure.
clear that it's centered on American politics, like the liberals, and you know the I think it's Labor. I don't really know. I'm not involved in American politics. Obviously,
Yeah,
we're Australian. Um, so yeah, it's just really uninteresting to me in that aspect that it's just solely focused on America being like the center focus of this whole movie. Like even when they go on to, eventually, well, we're not in spoiler territory, but when they eventually, sort of hatch a plan to do something, um, America's like the only country that's involved in it, and
yeah,
then
sure.
everyone else is just like sort of sitting silent.
Mm.
So, it sort of places America in the forefront and says, okay, this is like the only nation that's important right now.
Yeah, that actually exists. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That's a fair point. Actually, it is very based on American society. Certain things do kind of translate to the rest of the world. Like there's a lot of things about social media. There's a lot of things about celebrities. There's a lot of
Hmm.
things about TV hosts and stuff like that. And those are sort of universal. But then from the political side, obviously we have Meryl Streep playing the president and Jonah Hill playing the president's son.
Yep.
That's obviously that's very American, and you can imagine they're kind of making fun of all sorts of presidents, not just the ones that are the most controversial.
Hmm.
Um, so yeah, there is a very American angle, and also obviously we have this billionaire as well who is I think he's a like a parody or a representation of like Bill Gates and Elon Musk,
I
and
was gonna say Elon Musk. Yeah.
yeah, it's just like one of these characters that's promises to to save the world and provide this incredible technology, but
Yep.
never quite has the evidence to actually back up what he's saying,
Yeah.
but people
Yeah.
just go along with it anyway.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, there's all sorts of things, and everyone's sort of being poked fun at. But it is very American based, and sometimes it does annoy me in movies when it seems like America's the only country that actually matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
But they kind of do address, some other countries do come into it, but only in minor roles.
It's very, very minor.
Yeah, it's very different to something like Arrival. You know how in Arrival, when the aliens land in America, but then they also land in other
Yep.
areas in the world, and then obviously communicating with those countries plays a bit of part in the plot as well. I know you're not a fan of that movie, but
No, I
just
know
thought
what
I
you're saying though. Yeah.
just thought I'd reference it. So obviously, in terms of rewatchability, I don't see you going back to this film to have a rewatch.
Yeah. Not at all. Um, it's a pretty long movie as well. I think it's like
Mm,
2.5 hours long or something. 2 hours 20 minutes. Um, which isn't a short movie by any length. And I struggled the first time around. I had to sort of break this up into multiple viewing sessions. So I think yeah, it doesn't really hold any rewatchability for me. I don't see myself going back and watching this anytime soon, which is a
mm.
shame because Adam, I think it's Adam McKay. I'm just gonna say Adam
Yeah,
McKay.
yeah,
I could be
it's Adam
completely wrong.
McKay, I think. Yeah.
Um, he's done some pretty good movies. I know you have seen The Big Short, which is um, revered as like one of the best movies of our generation in terms of how relevant it is. But he's also done Step Brothers, which I think is like one of the funniest movies I've ever seen. Um,
Right.
so I like his stuff. It's just this one just wasn't there for me as I expected it to be.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough, fair enough. Also, like on the point of the runtime, this is it's kind of a comedy. Like it's trying to be a comedy, that's for sure. And comedies are usually like an hour and a half, and maybe 2 hours.
Yeah.
But this is 2 hours and a bit, so it's like 2 hours 20 minutes, probably like the official runtime.
Hmm.
But yeah, so it does sort of push its time limit in terms of what sort of genre movie it is. But personally, I was like really engaged. Like I'm very into this sort of political messaging and this political satire stuff.
Yep.
And so I was really engaged, and I pressed play, and like literally, I didn't look at my phone. Like I was into it. Like I was
Okay.
very, very into it. And I don't think I stopped at all. I was just straight through from beginning to end,
Yep.
just having a great time. So I really enjoyed it. But am I going to rewatch it? I not for a while, that's for sure.
Hmm.
I don't see myself ever being in a mood for this movie.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
When would you watch this? Right? It's a
exactly,
bit of a
it's a
wheel.
yeah, and we'll get into spoiler talk as well as to why maybe I wouldn't revisit it. But the movie's a bit depressing in areas,
Hmm.
and it's not something that you could just enjoy on
Yeah.
a monthly basis, or watch it a few times a year or whatever. Like it's not. I don't see it being that sort of movie, but for a one-time viewing, like I really enjoyed myself. So I will say that, but I wouldn't
Hmm.
recommend it for a rewatch. I don't think.
Yep.
So it's sort of in between there. Like I would recommend it, but I wouldn't recommend watching it twice. So it's
Okay.
yeah. But
Yeah.
so as I mentioned before, we have a stacked cast for this film. We have Leonardo DiCaprio in I believe his third movie in 6 years. So he's been choosing his roles very carefully. Obviously, so he had The Revenant, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and now this.
Yep.
What did you think of Leo in this movie?
It's a bit of an interesting side for Leo, isn't it? Like
Mm,
he usually does a lot of serious roles, and this is more so like a comedy for him,
mm,
even if his character wasn't really involved in the comedic side a lot.
sure.
Um, Look, I think he's definitely done better roles. It's nothing of a standout for him. In terms of raking in Oscars, I couldn't see him winning an Oscar for this.
Oh, I
Um,
wouldn't put it past the Oscars,
you
mate. They
wouldn't put
love
it
him.
past the Oscars.
I don't
Well,
think he's done a performance since The Revenant. Did he get nominated for Once Upon a Time in Hollywood?
I think he
Surely he
did. I
did.
think he did.
Surely he did. Yeah,
Yeah.
they love
Um,
him.
but like I don't know. It's just a role that I can't see him getting any awards for.
Yeah.
Just considering the fact that he didn't get anything for Inception, The Wolf of Wall Street, uh, Django Unchained, Catch Me If You Can, that sort of stuff, where
Mm,
they are his best roles,
yeah.
objectively speaking. Um, so look, I didn't mind him in this, but it's not his best performance, is what I'm trying
Yeah.
to say.
Yeah. Fair enough. Fair enough. We also have Jennifer Lawrence, who doesn't show up in movies very often either. So
Hmm.
it's kind of odd to have those two sort of leading this cast. But what did you think of Jennifer Lawrence in this movie?
Um, Same stuff again. I'm not the biggest fan of her. I don't watch a lot of her stuff. But she complemented the story well. I think she gave a pretty serious emotional role. Like
Mm,
she did a good job acting, as was with Leonardo DiCaprio. Um, but again, it's nothing special. I wouldn't see her winning any awards for this.
sure, sure. Yeah, I really enjoyed both Leo and Jennifer Lawrence in this movie. But yeah, I agree. Like their roles aren't dramatic enough, I think, to be in contention for award season, in my opinion. But then
Hmm.
again, like we're dealing with the Oscars here, like they
They're a
don't
bit weird like
operate.
that.
Yeah, they don't operate on sound logic. They operate on a different agenda. So
Yep.
whether they show up, I wouldn't be surprised if this gets nomination for Best Picture, nomination for a couple of performances, and probably like something like I don't know, original screenplay or something like that.
Hmm.
because the Oscars are going to love this sort of messaging, that in terms of the environmentalist angle, they love that sort of stuff.
Yep.
So I wouldn't be surprised, but I don't really think it deserves to get nominations for performances, but I wouldn't mind seeing it being nominated for Best Picture. It shouldn't win, because for me that pick would go to June so far, from what I've seen. But yeah, who knows with the Oscars, man.
Yeah, you never really know.
All right, in terms of visuals, I thought like the directorial style of this movie was quite unique. Like there was a lot of um, intercutting with photos, and some of the sequences were pretty like unique just in terms of how they were filmed. And there was a lot of kind of montages and stuff like that, which is similar to The Big Short.
Yep.
So what did you think of the visuals in this film?
Not that I was really paying attention to them throughout the runtime. Um, Again, it's nothing special. I didn't really see this as a standout element of the movie.
Sure.
Yeah, I don't know. Am I like watching a different movie to you? Who knows?
Yeah,
I didn't
I'm
really
talking
get
like,
that.
just some nice camera movements, but I'm not specifically like, oh, look at this shot of Leonardo DiCaprio staring at a screen. Isn't that like
Yeah,
great
yeah,
cinematography? But like more of just like the creative way of doing things with, there's like the opening sequence at the start, and like still images are like intercut between the video sometimes, and what did you specifically think about the CGI and the effects? Because there are a few sort of space scenes
yep.
in this movie. Obviously, we get some close-ups of the comet itself. I would have expected the CGI to look really bad, but personally, I thought it looked pretty good. What
Yeah.
did you think?
Honestly, for a Netflix production,
Mm,
it's not terrible. Like it's pretty much theater quality, right?
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, Netflix has come pretty far with their stuff. I mean, just look at the cast. I mean, 5 years ago they wouldn't have been able to achieve this sort of stuff.
Mm,
Leonardo DiCaprio never would have signed up for a streaming service role. Same with a lot of this cast. I mean, Meryl Streep. When is she ever going to do a Netflix movie again? Um, so it's just cool to see how far Netflix has come as a company, and I think they've released some pretty good stuff over the years. Um, so yeah, I thought the visuals in terms of the CGI wasn't actually that bad.
yeah, yeah. I think I thought it was quite good. In terms of sound, there is a score for this film. It's a
Hmm.
bit of like a jazzy score, and obviously we have an Ariana Grande song towards the end.
God.
Um, did any of the music stand out to you, or was it just sort of basic score?
Um, to me, it was kind of basic, but I've heard reviews saying that the score is fantastic. So maybe it's just a sort of a case where I didn't really pay attention to it, like I wasn't
Right.
looking out for it.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it did what it was meant to do.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. Actually, like it's not exceptional in my opinion, but I was listening to it just before to get our songs for the rewatch playlist, and the main title is pretty cool. Like it's a very energetic, jazzy sort of number,
Mhm.
but I can't really remember like a specific song throughout the movie that I'm like, oh yeah, that really just elevated the
Yeah,
material. But then again, it's kind of like a comedy. Like you don't could you tell me about the score in Step Brothers? Or
no, no,
it's exactly.
yeah,
So it's kind of unnecessary. The main thing is just like how these characters or how the actors are interacting with each other, and whether they have good comedic timing, whether
mm,
they give a good performance, whether the jokes are well written, and stuff like that.
yeah.
So yeah. All right, let's dive into spoiler territory now. So if you haven't seen the film, one of us recommends it, one of us doesn't. So if you do go and watch it and you don't like it, well, you can come at me. But Jayden told you not to, so
Yep, yep.
so we'll head into spoiler territory. Obviously, the thing I was most surprised by with this film is that it doesn't have necessarily a happy ending at all, really.
Which I kind of appreciate, right? Like,
Yeah.
I was kind of thinking, towards the end, which I think this movie definitely picks up a lot at the end. The final like 20 minutes are really good for me. Um, I've, I kind of like the fact that we don't get um, a happy ending, because I was kind of brainstorming at the end, and I was like, okay, how is this going to finish? Is the space shuttle that the president takes off on going to intercept uh, the meteor and hit it and blow up? I was like, okay, that's like an ending that could happen. Um, but I kind of appreciate the fact that Leonardo DiCaprio and his family just kind of die, like it,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
which I think is quite good.
Especially like when Meryl Streep's on her like her spaceship leaving Earth,
Yeah,
and she asks Leonardo DiCaprio's character if he wants to come on the ship with his
yeah.
wife, and he's like, "No, I'm good, I'm
She's
good."
and then Leonardo's like, "Have fun with Jason,"
And she's like, "Oh crap,"
oh. And then it
because
cuts to Jason, and he's like, "She'll come back. She's gonna be right back."
Jonah Hill was great in this
I
movie.
thought he was probably the standout for me.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, that's fair. He's got great like in The Wolf of Wall Street as well. Like his comedic timing and just like the personality of the guy is just like he's just so funny.
yep.
Um,
I think Jonah Hill is a fantastic actor, and I think he also carried a lot of the comedic um, elements in this movie, which I felt was lacking from pretty much the whole cast. For a movie that's labeled as a comedy, I really only got that from Jonah Hill, which is
mm,
kind of disappointing, and that's one of my
yeah,
major grudges with this movie.
yeah, yeah. I've seen reviews and people were like, "Oh, I was laughing out loud several times." There are a few jokes that got me, and perhaps like I did laugh a bit, but there was no hysterical laughter, and there wasn't like that constant comedy film like something like Superbad. When
Hmm.
you watch that, it's sort of like every sequence there is something either
Yeah,
amusing or funny,
yeah,
and even if you're not laughing out loud every 10 minutes, like it's still funnier than this,
yeah,
but
yeah,
so I get what you're saying there. The comedy was weak at
yeah.
times, but so would you say it's not the comedy wasn't one of the best things about the film for you?
Yeah, definitely, which is very disappointing because, this is a satire um, comedy sort of mashup. And I didn't really get either of them from this, or as much as I should have or hoped I would have. Um, so, yeah, mostly it's just disappointing on that front.
Yeah, yeah. I sometimes Jennifer Lawrence had a few good jokes, and I found Meryl Streep quite entertaining. But a lot of the time, I was more anxious and frustrated and than like than I don't know, like amused and having a great time.
Yep,
Like it's sort of like a clashing of the genres here because
yep.
sometimes I actually felt like this had more frustration and anxiety in it than comedy. And so for me, it's more like something like Uncut Gems or Good Time, those Safdie Brothers
Okay.
films.
And
That
I think that just comes with the fact that they really wanted to push political agendas and other themes here. So and I hate movies that do that, man. Like they label it as being a comedy or a horror film. Take the newest Candyman, for example. It's like, okay, this is a horror movie and you're going to be scared by it, but at the same time, we're going to absolutely like load it with, proliferation and Black Lives Matter campaigns, and then just completely forget that it's a horror movie. Um, and that's a shame, man, because you go into this film to watch it for that reason, and then you just completely like, you know, blocked and sort of thrown off guard, um,
hmm,
when you don't really get what you came for, which
yeah,
is
yeah.
exactly how I felt here.
Yeah, I feel the same way for movies in general, but for this movie, I felt like there wasn't, apart from that environmentalist thing and sort of saying like society needs to do more for essentially climate change. That's the sort of the metaphor going on here. Um,
Hmm.
but I didn't see that it was being preachy or anything like that, like some other films do, like Candyman, from what I can tell
Yep.
from your review and such. So I thought that this like actually handled the political stuff quite well. But obviously, it's outrageous. The movie's outrageous. You know, it's not like, I don't think it's supposed to be like a grounded take on on a situation. And you'd think that in the real world, if something were like this to happen, logic would prevail.
Hmm.
But but then
Apparently not.
again, there are things in this movie that do, seem very similar. We do have a lot of billionaires walking around sort of saying that they could save the world and, do all of this huge stuff, and people just flock to them and believe
Yeah,
whatever they say.
yeah,
And then we also have, presidents who, often don't operate on logic and seem to have different agendas to what is like the common good. And we also have, corruption and all of that sort of stuff. And sometimes people don't believe the science. I mean, just look at what's happened with COVID,
mm,
and
mm,
just what's happened there with the denial of science and all of that sort of stuff. So I think this movie is very relevant in a lot of ways, but it's sort of like an outrageous take on things, and that's where the comedy element comes in.
hmm.
But often I just found myself so anxious that these people were going to die because I was so invested in their story that I
Yep.
wasn't really laughing except for when Jonah Hill was sort of on screen. So I completely recognize what you're saying there about Jonah Hill
Yeah.
sort of carrying the comedy weight on his
100%.
shoulders there.
100%.
Yeah. Timothy Chalamet comes into this film sort of for a cameo. He only sort of comes in to make out with Jennifer Lawrence, which is pretty fantastic role for him. I will say, like, all the credit to him for securing that one.
Yep. Yep.
But what were your thoughts on him now that we've seen him in June?
Um, Look, I really like him as an actor, but at the same time, I didn't enjoy him in this as well. I think it was just, like you explained it, it's a cameo role. Um, Nothing of a standout for him. I think Netflix probably just wasted their money with, getting him on for this project. Um, yeah, I think this cast is fantastic, and then a lot of the performances are just blatantly average, and maybe that's because of the writing, maybe that's because of the directing skills from Adam McKay. I don't really know.
Yeah, I feel like his character was kind of useless, only sort of used to give Jennifer Lawrence's character a bit more characterization and
Hmm.
make us like her a bit more, because we see like a more vulnerable side to her. Um, but yeah, I feel like it was something that could have been reduced. But then again, like, you want Timothy Chalamet in your film, don't you? You don't want to just be like,
Yeah,
okay, we're gonna have Timothy Chalamet for a cameo or whatever. He sort of has like a side role. But
yeah,
um, what did you think of Chris Evans's cameo? Did you spot that one?
yeah. No, I did spot that one.
Yeah.
Again, it's just weird, man. Like, why, why are these actors in the film and then they're given like the tiniest roles? Um,
Chris Evans is just like cameoing in everything. Obviously, we had him in Free
and
Guy
Free
as well
Guy,
as
yeah.
yeah.
It's sort of the same thing, right? Like,
Mm.
I don't know. It just feels like a sort of last minute sort of thing where Netflix calls him up and it's like, okay, do you want to be in this movie? We'll give you such and such amount to be in this movie. And he's like, yeah,
Mm.
I'll do it. And then he rocks up for one day on set and then he's done,
Yeah,
which, I don't know. It's just a bit of a weird thing for me.
yeah. Fair enough. Um, Speaking of things that could have been cut from the movie, I
Yeah,
felt like,
I know exactly what you're about to say.
or okay, we'll see. I thought that the side plot where Leonardo DiCaprio's character
Okay,
cheats on his wife with Kate Blanchett's character,
the
the
reporter.
t the TV host. I thought that was a bit irrelevant,
Mm-hmm.
um, and certainly something that could have been trimmed.
Yep.
As much as Kate Blanchett earns this movie a simp watch tag, for me,
I was
um,
wondering what the simp watch was on your.
yeah, you'd think it was for Jennifer Lawrence, but it actually wasn't. It was for Kate Blanchett.
Well, I was thinking, I was like, Jennifer Lawrence doesn't look, A1 in this movie, so
She's got a weird
is
haircut
it
going
Meryl
on.
Streep? Who is it?
Oh, certainly not Meryl Streep towards the end of this movie. That is for
No.
sure. um, but yeah, so I felt like that side plot could have been trimmed down a bit, and it didn't really lead anywhere because at the end of the film, Leonardo DiCaprio's character sort of makes good with his wife before sort of the final climactic ending.
Hmm.
So that's sort of like thrown to the side anyway. Like, so I feel like maybe they could have trimmed that down a bit. But
Yep.
what did you think of those sort of TV appearances? Did they frustrate you as much as they frustrated me? Because my gosh, I was furious with those TV hosts.
But that's what's meant to happen, right? Like
Exactly,
you're meant to
exactly.
hate them. Um, I think it's just another unnecessary element of the movie. Didn't really enjoy it. I thought Tyler Perry was pretty good at times.
Mm,
Um, and they didn't really explore his character any more than that, which I enjoyed because Kate Blanchett kind of got this useless story arc, like you
yeah,
explained,
yeah.
when they should have just been on and off, sort of irregularly when we needed an explanation of what's going on in the media. So I think I liked Tyler Perry's character a lot more than I did
Mm,
Kate Blanchett's. Um, yeah, but they should have just kept it at a base sort of level rather than
mm.
exploring it a lot more.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I did appreciate like the portrayal of the media sort of always sugarcoating things, and like it always has to be like a happy, positive thing. Like they rarely like just sit down and just tell you straight how it is. They've always got to put their sort of spin on it
Yep.
and make it entertaining, and they don't want to make people sad. They want people to keep coming back to watch the show and stuff like that. So I appreciated that. But I think they could have done something a bit different with the media in regarding like the fake news side of things, like the
Hmm.
manipulation of stories. Instead, it was just like the media didn't want to, actually comprehend the situation. And
Yeah.
I feel like they could have done something better with, the manipulation of perhaps like, maybe there isn't a comet, or, that maybe they dig into the lives of these two characters and sort of, expose their flaws or whatever.
But they were trying to get that right. Like I think that was the underlying message they were trying to push. Um, because I think Tyler Perry or Kate Blanchett kept sort of asking um, Leo or Jennifer Lawrence, what is the risk of this comet actually hitting us? And then they just
Mm.
kind of laugh it off, right? So they're trying to make like a joke out of this really serious
Yeah, yeah.
event. So it's sort of halfway there and it's halfway not there. So it's just kind of sitting on the fence, which is a bit of a strange, decision thematically to
Mm.
choose.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Another thing that really infuriated me, and it's obviously supposed to, but then again, you have to consider that this is trying to be a comedy as well. So how much, how much fury am I feeling regarding the story
Yeah,
as opposed to how much comedy?
yeah. How
But
much are you laughing?
yeah, Meryl Streep as the president. My goodness, that was tough. That was tough on
Yep.
on the emotions. Just incredibly frustrating.
Hmm.
What did you think of Meryl Streep as the president?
I think it's a pretty good casting decision. Um, I think her character's all right in this role. It definitely works well. But again, when there should have been a lot more comedy, there just wasn't. So I don't know what they were trying to achieve here. I don't know whether the comedy just kind of got overshadowed by, the nature and the political themes going on. Um, but at the same time, I also just kind of felt myself sort of eager to see more of Jonah Hill as
Mm,
opposed to Meryl Streep because Jonah Hill was that comedic aspect. Like when he was on screen, you knew you were getting comedy, whereas Meryl Streep only, sort of dropped a comedic, humorous line every now and then.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
so I think she's good in the role, but yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of more disappointing than anything
Mm,
else.
sure, sure. I will admit, seeing her getting eaten by that bird at the end was
Yeah,
very very satisfying, and also a great sort of like foreshadowing. Earlier in the film when the insufferable billionaires like
Peter Ishmael. Yeah.
yeah, he's like, you're gonna die because you're gonna get eaten by this bizarre animal
By a
name.
bulwark or whatever it was.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
she was like, what does that mean? And he's like, I have no idea.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then it comes back later in the film.
Yeah.
Is that the mid credit scene? Was it the when
Um,
they
I
went
think
back to
yeah. So the
Earth?
credits sort of play over running visuals of
Ah,
the
right, yeah.
rocket kind of going through space. So it's I wouldn't really call it a credit sequence because credits are more so black screen rolling
Mm,
text bunch of
sure.
names for me, and this was more so um, just acknowledging like the major production companies and major actresses and actors that were involved in the movie.
Mm. Yeah, yeah. Fair enough, fair enough. And then obviously we do get that post credit sequence with Jonah Hill
Hmm.
um, somehow surviving. uh, God knows how he did that.
I really liked that scene. I thought that was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So let's talk about what I feel was the best part of this movie, and that was the ending.
Hmm.
Just how they built up that anxiety throughout the entire movie. It sort
Yep.
of comes to a major crescendo with this family sort of sitting at the dinner table and just trying to make conversation about the most mundane things because they're trying to distract themselves from the fact that they're all going to die
Yep.
and there's absolutely nothing they can do about it. What did you think about it?
Um, I thought it was really well handled. The final 20-10 minutes, however long it was. Um, yeah, look, I think the fact that they all decided that they were going to stay on Earth and you know die um, was very heartwarming because in a way they kind of won, right?
Right.
As opposed to the president
Mm,
and whoever she went with. I think it was Peter Ishwell. Um, because they have this looming guilt over them, now that the fact that they sort of betrayed Earth. They said they were going to blow up this meteor and it didn't really work out. So they essentially killed the whole population.
mm,
But, Leonardo DiCaprio and his family can kind of live a happy death because they tried everything that they could and they didn't succeed. So it's a very heartwarming ending, even though it doesn't end as you would expect it to.
mm.
Um, so I really liked that decision that Leonardo doesn't have a happy ending, but he
Yeah.
does.
Yeah, I've seen an interview with Leonardo DiCaprio for this movie, and he said that if the ending wasn't like this, he wouldn't have signed up for it because
Hmm.
it comes as such a shock um, to the audience that that they just die.
Yeah, yeah.
It just the worst thing that could happen happens.
Hmm.
Um, because he said like obviously he's a huge environmentalist and this is sort of trying to be a warning for the effects of climate change. And he says um, that it's very hard to build some sort of urgency around climate change because there's no, there isn't a comet going towards Earth and there isn't a specific timeline on it.
Yeah.
It's a very gradual sort of thing. And so he said that, this film serves as a very sort of stark warning
Hmm.
and is supposed to shock you. And it really did shock me. I was very surprised. Um, I thought, I thought maybe the billionaire was going to pull it off, but not. Just watching it all unfold, and the depressing nature of it all is it's very hard to watch. But it's sort of in a good way. I was very into the film. I was
Hmm.
enjoying it very much. But geez, it doesn't leave you with the best feeling in the world about the human race, does it?
No, definitely not. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not an uplifting and heartwarming story.
No.
That is for sure. So, if you've got nothing else, I'll just ask what what was missing for you in terms of this film. What would you like to see more of to improve your sort of perception, your viewing?
Yeah. Well, you already know because I've said it throughout this podcast. Just comedy. It was severely lacking. They advertised this as being a comedy satire movie, and there was hardly any of it from
Hmm.
any of the actors and actresses other than Jonah Hill. I think Jonah Hill was the only actor that gave me serious laughs from his lines. So yeah, it's just significantly lacking on that forefront. But I'll tell you what was there, which could have been cut, was Ariana Grande and Kid Cudi.
Oh, yeah, that was hard to watch.
Just completely useless. I don't have a problem with the fact that they're musical artists sort of entering the film industry. I have more so a fact that they play musical artists in a film, but they're not the same people. It's just
Right.
like,
Yeah, it's odd, isn't it?
what's going on there? And then Ariana Grande is given like a real serious performance, and then Kid Cudi's like, I don't know what he's doing. He's doing like some sort of backup vocals. It's just weird, man. Like it's a complete waste of the time. I think their performance goes for like 10 minutes. So if you cut 10 minutes off there, um, yeah, just a really bad decision. And I love both of them as musical artists. I think they're great. I don't really listen to a lot of Ariana Grande, but I do listen to Kid Cudi. Um, and it's just kind of a weird decision to have them in this movie.
Mm.
And it's pretty clear the reason that why they were in this, right? Is to bring in certain audiences to capture their attention to come and watch them to watch this movie.
Mm.
And that's all of Ariana Grande's fans and all of Kid Cudi's fans, sort of covering two bases there, right? The rap fans
Yeah.
and pop fans. So it's kind of just a guilty decision in terms of Netflix and Adam McKay for introducing them and having them play roles in this movie.
Yeah, perhaps it's trying to capture that younger demographic because
Exactly, man.
I think this movie would be good sort of viewing for younger people because it is like that environmentalist message is very important and so and so I think it would be good for people to view this from that perspective. But on your point there about Ariana Grande, I wish she was just playing herself because she very easily could have just done that. I mean, it's like she was playing herself, but she was called something different.
Mm.
Like just play yourself. Like we've had that sort of thing happen before. I'm sure she's probably played herself in other films. I
Yep.
think maybe. Um, so for me, that's what kind of took me out of it when I first saw her character because she's just playing herself, like sort of celebrity pop star.
Yeah.
So just make her Ariana Grande. Sort of base this as in the real world.
Yeah.
By doing that.
Exactly.
But I did enjoy like the commentary there about celebrities and just how ridiculous it was. How the world were more captivated on their sort of breakup and their relationship than this comet coming towards Earth. There is a bit of a satire there on just like how we view celebrities and such. But
Yep.
so yeah, I do find it odd that Ariana Grande signed on to do this movie, considering it's kind of parodying, it's kind of making fun of her. But oh well.
Yeah.
Maybe she didn't realize it.
Yeah, maybe she misread the script.
Yeah, maybe she thought it was something completely different.
Yep.
Oh well. All right. So if we have no further thoughts on the film, we'll hop to the music segment. So every podcast we like to put in a few songs from the film into the Rewatch playlist, which is a playlist on Spotify that you can listen to through the link in the video description. This week I've put in Don't Look Up main title suite. It's like the jazz sort of track it plays at the start of the film, I think. But it kind of just personifies like the jazzy aspect of this score. And then look, I had to do it. I put in the Ariana Grande song.
Oh God.
Just Look Up. Put that song in there. Listening to it, you wouldn't know that it was a song about the world ending, but it is.
No, yeah, I definitely got the lyrics in there. I think she says something about like
she's like, we're all gonna die.
she's like look up or something.
Yeah, she's like, just look up.
Just look up. Yeah.
Yeah, we're all gonna die. It's
I just felt like her performance was just completely and utterly useless in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah, sure. That's fair.
But you
Um,
you look after the rewatch playlist, so I'm not
yeah,
going to fight you on that.
yeah. It is a song that a lot of times when artists write specific songs for movies, it can become a bit cringe, like with the lyrics.
Hmm.
Like I know a few Spider-Man songs that were written for TASM 2. Um, as soon as like the as soon as the artist starts singing about like spider webs and stuff, it gets a bit cringy. Like it's
Yeah,
like, oh, you were going so well. Like, why did you have to throw that in?
yeah.
Um, but in this, I think it works like as a pop song, but because Ariana Grande, like her voice is so sort of, you know, a certain way that you can hardly sort of take in the lyrics. She doesn't really pronounce the actual lyrics with much sort of I don't know, with much volume almost. It's more
Well,
about the
it's
tone of
it's
her
not very
voice.
clear, right? Like
Yeah,
you can't really make out what she's saying.
yeah, exactly. So it doesn't become cringy in that way, but yeah, it is frustrating to watch these sort of celebrities try to take advantage of this situation, which is exactly what her character it was doing. But very tough to watch, but I think that's how it was supposed to be. So
Yeah,
I'm not complaining there in terms of her performance, but I just wish she just played herself. It would have been,
a lot
more
better.
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. All right, then let's go to some final thoughts. I think I'll go first
Yep.
because I'll start it off on a positive note. So I'm very into this political stuff, like you know that.
Hmm.
A political satire sort of goes a long way with me. I really enjoyed like watching this world fall apart. It was so painful to watch, but so interesting at the same time.
Yep.
Seeing all these sort of figures of our society sort of be um, be scrutinized and become butts of jokes and just showing how sort of pathetic the human race can be sometimes. Quite enjoyed that. I'm not going to revisit it for a while at least. I don't really have the urge to rewatch it. But with that said, I really enjoyed it. I was very immersed in this film, and I think it's one of the better Netflix films of the year. Really, certainly better than something like Red Notice. That is for sure.
Hmm.
Um, but yeah,
Yep.
so this is right up my alley. So I'm going to give it an A minus
Hmm.
because yeah, I really enjoyed it. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5 stars on Letterboxd, and I don't know if that equates to an A minus, but I think an A minus is perhaps a bit lower than the 4.5 stars, but
I'd call that an A, four and
yeah,
a half.
yeah.
Yeah.
So I'm going to give that an A minus. Very close to that, slipping into the B plus
Yep.
category, but I came into this movie knowing sort of what it was, and I enjoyed it for what it was. So I'll give it an A minus.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Um, Look, I think you already know where I'm going with this. I was more so just disappointed than I was excited by this. I think it's definitely got some good stuff in there. I think the last 20 minutes, as I've said way too many times, is the best part of this movie. And then everything else leading up to that is just so infuriating to sit through. I think it's just like a complete waste of time. I think it goes on for way too long. I think it should have been a comedy when it was more so this weird
Mm,
political hybrid sort of movie.
sure.
Um, yeah, you're definitely right in saying that there isn't as much political stuff as other movies. It doesn't really push it all that much, which I agree with, but it's still there. Like it's an
Yeah,
underlying
yeah.
theme. I do think some of the political stuff was handled pretty well. There's a point where Jonah Hill's like getting stuff thrown at him when all like the
Yeah, yeah.
is it the Labour Party who support
So yeah, so I think it was like the right wing, so it was like the
the
Republicans.
Republicans?
Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I
so
think he calls them rednecks, doesn't
yeah,
he?
yeah. So he
Yeah.
gets like a bunch of stuff thrown at him, and then he's like, "Oh, you effing rednecks!" and then he like walks off stage, which I thought
Yeah,
was really funny.
yeah,
And that's essentially like the gist of the film is like Jonah Hill will laugh, rest of the movie suck. So that's essentially what I got from it. And another huge issue that I have with this movie, which I haven't really raised until now, is just the fact that it's so messy. Like just trying to think back on this film and like remember significant plot points and try to remember, how this movie walks through and, how it sits sort of chronologically. I just can't remember it, man, because there's so much stuff going on that it just becomes instantly forgettable. And I don't know if that's like a problem that you have with the movie, but that's just sort of me reflecting on it. Like, I can't remember where this movie starts, where it ends, what happens in the middle. It's just such a mess. Like,
Yeah,
there's
sure.
so many plot lines going on. Um,
Mm.
but in saying all that, there was some stuff that I enjoyed. So it's not average for me. It's a bit below average, but it's not a complete failure for me because they did some stuff right.
Mm.
So I'll give it a C minus just because Jonah Hill I thought was pretty great, and I thought Leonardo DiCaprio and Jennifer Lawrence were all right with their roles.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but yeah, I didn't really enjoy the story as much as you did.
Yeah, yeah. So that's a pretty big gap. It's not the biggest gap in rewatch history. That still
I,
goes to Arrival.
I think this one's a lot more appropriate, right? You sit this one. You like my rating on this one a lot more than you do with Arrival. I think you can
Yeah,
understand where I'm coming from with this at
yeah,
least.
yeah.
Yeah.
And look, this has got a 3.2 on Letterboxd, and there's a lot of people who've given it like below 3 star,
Hmm.
and I think that just depends how you view politics and how much you want to engage with that sort of material. So
Yep.
I feel like for somebody like Leonardo DiCaprio, this is like he'd love being in this movie.
Yep.
He loves the role, and this is something that he would be drawn to because he's so engaged in the political, you know, sphere. And as somebody who follows politics, not sort of desperately, but I have somewhat of a knowledge of what's going on, and sort of the all of the bad things that happen and the hypocrisy of the media and just all of that sort of garbage. Um,
Hmm.
I enjoyed it quite a lot, and it was sort of cathartic in a way, seeing a lot of these people being made fun of.
Yep.
But at the same time, it was infuriating to watch. But that's exactly how I think it's supposed to be. So it worked for me. It sounds like it didn't work for you, but I think that just comes down to personal preference. So yeah, I mean, I'm happy to leave it at that.
Sounds good.
So thank you very much for listening to this episode of the Rewatch Podcast. If you'd like to follow us on Instagram, you can do so at the Rewatch Pod. We're also on TikTok. If you'd like to subscribe to the YouTube channel, just search the Rewatch on YouTube. Jayden, are we actually going to do Return of the Jedi for our next episode? Or
I think we have to.
yeah, I think we're running out of options here before the end of the year. So we'll probably do Return of the Jedi, and then we're going to wrap up with our Rewatch Awards before. Well, that'll probably come out early January sort of thing,
Yeah.
but we'll have to see. So yeah, so stay tuned for that, and thank you very much for listening to this episode, and we'll catch you next time.
Later.